Good evening and welcome to The Way of Conscious Mindfulness, a weekly podcast and YouTube show discussing spirituality, science, balancing health and well-being with mind, body and spirit, with a Taoist twist. The Tao means the way, the balance, the path. Now, we are not the normal talk show. Surprise, surprise. Each week we have either a subject or a guest, and we have a very, very beautiful guest. And somebody else. I was slightly distracted there. Yes, so we have a very beautiful guest. We have had her on the show before. Our aim is to have an open discussion to help us all find new skills, new techniques, and new ways, and speed really, and new ways to help you in your find and to balance your own personal Tao. Now, again, as I said, this week is an interesting show in the essence of a guest that ended up becoming a co-host. He's now going to be a guest again, which is always cool. But this week it is the wonderful, the lovely, the glorious Marilyn Devonish. But before we get to her, we will mention the co-hosts. So, my ever so trusted, my ever so Scottish. It is my friend. It is my brother from another mother. It is my soul comrade. It is the other side of this crazy Jedi. That is me. It is the great, the magnificent Robbie McKenzie. Good evening, hi. Robbito. Hey.
I wish you would stop underplaying me so much.
I know. Well,
if you could just build my ego up a little bit to give me a little bit of confidence.
Well, I'm not that sort of person. I pretty much say it as it is, and besides, you don't pay me enough. So imagine if you did
talk
pay
about
me.
The money later. We'll talk about the money later.
Yeah, imagine if you did pay me, blimey. So how are you, dear brother?
I'm grand, fantastic, nice to be here. Excited once again about the show, the lovely Marilyn. Really? I won't do the whole show, the whole name, because I tripped myself up with that before. So in rehearsals,
you mean Marilyn
in the
Devonish?
massive rehearsals that we do before the show.
Marilyn Devonish? How could you get tripped up by Marilyn Devonish? It's a wonderful name, Marilyn Devonish. How many times can Boggy say it? Marilyn Devonish, Marilyn Devonish.
That's going to be the party trick after. Say it 3 times after you finish talk.
So no, that's like Beetlejuice. You say it 3 times, you turn into me. That's a scary prospect.
Or you turn into the guy from Limitless.
Yeah. Oh no, that's quite cool. But anyway, so I'm glad you're well. So I would like to welcome back. What was it? First time co-host, second time guest. There's a movie. First time listener. But anyway, I digress. So, hello everyone. How are you, sir? Are you there, Tuan?
Are you there? Do you hear me?
Hello, sir. How are you? Good evening. How are you doing?
Good evening. Hello. Yes, I had some interference in the communication. Good evening to Marilyn, to you, and to Robbie. I'm really happy to be here again. So, yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine.
Oh, good. It's good to have you back. It's good to have you back, and this time as a co-host, which will be an interesting concept. But it's another brother from a different mother. So from the last show is you Juan is very much we connected in a slightly in another way. And it was good to have the information. So it'd be good to, see how your viewpoint, how your focus, your thinking is on this show with Marilyn. So thank you very much for joining us, and looking forward to your questions.
Yeah.
Cool. So tonight is the show all about Marilyn Devonish. Marilyn Devonish, yes, that wonderful lady called Marilyn Devonish. I can say the name. I'm only taking the mickey, Robbie. Yes, the wonderful. Now, we actually discussed just before the show. We sort of said, oh, what's the show about? And then when we went through everything that we talked about on the last show, it was like, blimey, how many episodes did we do in 2 hours? So it's going to be a really interesting show, because I think we're going to recap a little bit and then go from there. So I would like to welcome on to the show again the wonderful, the lovely, the very awesome Agent 35, always known as Marilyn Devonish. Good evening, Marilyn.
Good evening. How are you?
I am awesome, as awesome can be. Things are pretty. It's very cold here in the UK. For those in, I think Juan and Robbie are in very warmer climates than us in Brits, because you're in Watford, if I remember rightly.
I am in Watford. It was -6 degrees this morning, so it's a little bit chilly here. Yes. I'm not so far away in Heathrow, so yes, it was. And I'm going to the coast in the morning, so it could be even colder down there. So you never know.
Well, we were in a sunnier climate, but now we're back in Budapest and it's freezing here. So
what is it? Is it -6 freezing?
It's Baltic. What is it? It was snowing yesterday.
Oh really? Oh blimey.
Yeah.
Cool. Where's my snowboard?
It's 3 degrees right now.
What, the 3 degrees? Sorry. But anyway, I mean, right. The ultimate question, you've had it already once before. What is the way of Marilyn Devonish? So let's start off with that. Let's start off a little bit. What are you all about, Marilyn?
Now, when I was on the show, I think it was 6 months ago, I said that my way is kind of my basic philosophy in life, in terms of wherever you go, there you are. In terms of, my life used to be governed by external circumstances, and if I didn't like the circumstance, I would move. So, changing jobs, changing friends, changing people, never being happy with, and just thinking, right, well, if I could just change that, and if I just do that, and if I could just move here, and if I could just, change this, everything will be okay. And then I had that realization that actually, wherever you go, there you are. So whether or not I had moved to Bali or the Caribbean or stayed in Watford, if I wasn't right within myself, then it didn't really matter where I was once the honeymoon period was over. And so I'd say that is my way of being. And just kind of as I was thinking about it today, I would say, if I were to add to that, I would say my way is simplicity, because I do a lot of things. And one of the things people often say is that they appreciate the fact that I can take something that's often quite complicated and simplify it and break it down, and you can just go, oh, I totally get it now. So I would say my way is kind of being as peaceful as you can within yourself, such that you are not driven by and buffered by your external circumstances, and also looking for ways to get to the heart of the matter, rather than kind of being kind of stuck in the periphery and the complication of it all. Yeah, I think that's what I'd say my way is, in terms of, how I live and kind of go through my life.
It's a good way. It's definitely a good way. It's one I would I would say that, that's mine. Trying to make things as simple as possible. Try to enjoy your life. I think it's pretty cool. So I'll do one more question before I'll let anybody else speak, just for a change. So can we do a little recap? What did we talk about last time?
So the recap, it's quite a big recap, because I actually did watch the whole 2 hours and 11 minutes today to remind myself, which was quite epic. And so last time round we talked about, where do we begin? So we started off by talking about, what is this thing called Huna? And we also talked about NLP and personal development, and is that a good tool for opening yourself up spiritually? We talked about the soul plan. So I shared a bit about how I discovered my soul plan and the impact that it had on me, and the impact that it's had on my clients and their lives. We talked about the correspondences of Huna, and really kind of looking at some of the ancient wisdoms and traditions, and the fact that they are often talking about the same thing. I think that's the point where Robbie came into the conversation. That was really fascinating. In part 2, oh yeah, we talked about the Merkaba and the Star of David. That was one of our our tangent conversations, which was also fascinating. In part 2, we talked about emotrance and the physicality of emotions and how you can move stuck emotions out of the body. The questioner talked about, the golden pill and the matrix of life, which was another fascinating discussion. Chris was also talking about, and we got into a discussion about muscle memory and how does that work, and what is it. I also talked a bit about how I reversed my brain fog and what was thought to be early onset Alzheimer's. So we had a conversation around that. We then transitioned into photo reading and how to read at 25,000 words per minute. We talked about the power of mind mapping, and then you and Robbie Jedi mind tricked me into being a co-host, and clearly that did work, because I have been a co-host ever since, so well done, boys. And then we finished off with talking about the keys to transformation and what are some of the catalysts that can help you change, and also how to access the genius potential of you. So yeah, that's a recap of the show my first show with you guys that I did 6 months ago. There you have it.
No, well, we didn't cover much then, did we? And as for me and Robbie, what were you on about? Robbie, I don't know what she's going on about. I mean, it's obviously mistranslation.
Talk to the agent.
I know nothing.
Talk to the agent. We'll work out a deal. No problem.
Oh, no, I know nothing. I come from Barcelona. I know nothing. It
was a brilliant show. It was a really, really interesting show as well. About the potential of the mind and how we underestimate ourselves as well. And not just underestimate ourselves, but we are kind of taught that. We are taught restriction. We're taught limitation. And when we realize our potential, it's mind blowing. It is like coming out of the Matrix. It is like that film. It's like it just goes to, well, wait a minute, I can do that, and I can do that, and I can do that. And how many words a minute? Really? And then it's like, oh, really? Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, mind opening. Yeah,
because there's the thing, because the open, say the thousands of words per minute. There was the thing I did where there was a 9-foot wall, and my Sifu said, "I'm going to teach you to jump that 9-foot wall," and it's like, what? How? What? I'm barely 6 foot. How am I going to jump a 9-foot wall? And it's all about technique and everything. And I sort of learned, that was one of my first lessons, that technically, however hard something is, or however possible it seems, technically it's all about technique. If you can figure out the techniques and start off bit by bit and build up, and the whole jumping a 9-foot wall, you start off with a 1/2 foot hole, and you jump in and out of that hole 500 times minimum every single day, and every day you take out a cupful of dirt until you reach your desired depth. So the whole point is that you slowly build up over a period of time, which is really Taoistic, and you build up over a period of time, and then that you get to that desired depth. So through that time, you've built up your stamina, you've built up the ability, so it's not some great thing. And
if you had gone into that in the beginning, believing that 9 foot was not a problem, 12 foot would have been something different. Do you know what I mean? It's like part of that is about what you believe in your mind as well, and it's good to build things up. And I like coming from both perspectives as far as that is concerned, because I think it is good to not overwhelm people and they think that they can do one bit at a time, and that's good. But ultimately, it's about where your starting point is as well.
Yeah.
If you believe that you can do it, and and your teacher or your sensei or your Sifu or whoever it is believes in you, and you feel that energy, you can do it. You can do it much quicker, and you can move it forward much quicker. And that's come from someone that's experienced it already. Like you say, you've jumped that 9 foot. Do you know what I mean? So it can be done, and it's not about your height. It's not about what your perceived restrictions are. It's about you. It's about the restrictions that you're giving yourself as well. Sometimes, a lot of the time,
Indeed.
I think with the whole speed reading as well, it's getting over that concept that could be a real thing. You know, because we're taught this limitation, we're taught this little box, we're taught you're only allowed to do that and you're only able to do that. I'm jumping 12 feet now, you know, I'm flying. Like, oh,
that is divine motion, isn't it?
Indeed, indeed. I mean, so I mean, you've heard sort of the things we talked about. Is there anything there you'd like, you know, to like to ask Marilyn about? Is there anything there that intrigues you?
Are you asking me?
Yes, yes,
okay.
I am. Sorry, my friend. Yes.
Well, we had indeed the last conversation a couple of months ago, and Marilyn was hosting on that time. So, well, she was making really interesting questions about the manifestation of energies on Earth. Sometimes she said, she asked to me that her perception was giving to her the idea that everything was going backwards, you know, that the world was going in backwards motion. So I would like to ask her if that perception has changed in the last time, because as Robbie says, I think that we are all in an collective awakening, and that is speeding all the energies very much. So I don't know if that perception has changed in the last time. I would like to ask to Marilyn today.
Okay, now for me, I remember kind of talking about that. And for me, what I was talking about in that context, if we look at what was, let's say, what's happening in the political scenario, and around that time, we were seeing the advent of, let's just say, the Ku Klux Klan marching through the streets. That's a sight that hasn't been seen since the 1960s. And there are many people who would think that those times have now passed. And so it almost appears that in some respects, we were going backwards. The way I would perceive the world at the moment is the way I see it, I see it almost like in a therapeutic context, that we are in catharsis, where in order for something to get better, you often have to bring up stuff. You have to get it out of your system. So oftentimes when somebody has the symptoms of the cold or the flu, what they're doing is they're releasing that stuff out of the body and they're getting rid of it. Or if, you know, somebody's lancing a boil, you lance the boil to bring up the pus, if you want to put it that way. And so as I look at the world and I observe what's going on, it feels like the things that are happening now are a catalyst for change. And we're almost going backwards in order to kind of, I think the way it feels is that we're raising awareness. People are suddenly going, oh, is this still going on? Is that still a problem? Do people still do this and think like this? And you know, and we've had a sea of change for people out there. Even if you don't follow Hollywood in the news, it may not have escaped your notice that there have been a lot of lawsuits flying around at the moment, and a lot of men in high positions being with, there was a guy, Matt Lauer, yesterday, who I believe has been with the news channel for 20 years. He started broadcasting in 1997, and he was fired yesterday after what seemingly was one complaint. And so we have the look of it going backwards, but we also have the acceleration of things being sorted out. No longer are things being immediately swept under the carpet. We are now in a position where the problem has been outed, it has been identified, and people are actually now going, all right, what should we do about it? Let's find some solutions. So in a way, although on the face of it, I would say it appears that we are going backwards, I would say that what is truly happening is there is an acceleration and a speeding up of our level of awareness and our willingness to actually tackle some of these issues and problems, such that we're in cleanup mode. That's the way I would say that my perception is at the moment.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would, as always, I showed the hammer. Bigger the down, the bigger the up, the bigger the up, the bigger the down. And is I think, you know, if you like the prophecy of the golden age, I think for things to change, firstly, all the crap that was under the carpet the carpet needs to be lifted up, and the rubbish needs to be swept out. And I think that's what's happening with a lot of stuff. You know, it's been hidden and it was not talked about. I mean, for those who sort of know about British stories, Jimmy Savile, or somebody called him in America Savile. You know, he was like a prime example that he was always there, and everybody sort of, there was all these rumours about what was going on, but they was never talked about. Once he died, suddenly it all came out, and then there was the domino effect of everything else.
Wonderfully, it all came out, I think.
Yeah.
Even, I mean, it would have been better if it had come out when he was alive, you know, but maybe that's all perfect and as a symbol of that being what is dying. So, and that needs to die. Do you know what I mean? We need to go, right, okay, that's died now. That's had its time. That is it's a horrible thing. It's not a great thing. You know, I'm writing part of that in my book just now about that whole thing and the way that society accepted this and brushed it under the rug for certain people in certain positions, in certain families, in certain traditions. And all of that since this last 10 years. There has been a massive light shone on everything because we are Big Brother now, but instead of it being just state-sponsored Big Brother, we are our Big Brother. So we are the camera phone. We are the camera phone generation now, that there is nothing that can be hidden anymore because there is more than one stream of information. It is ubiquitous. And the great thing about America, because it's such a litigious society, everybody's kind of going, well, wait a minute, what do we do damage limitation here? That whole way of society now, they're going, well, we can't have that anymore. You can't be in that position anymore because we're going to get sued. We can't, wait a minute, you can't be in that position. You can't be representing me. I can't have anything to do with you. I can't have anything to do with that handshake anymore because it's all going to get found out. And they're realizing that. And the knock-on effect, it's not just, it is all coming from our consciousness. But it's like Marilyn says, now it's like it's a catharsis. It's like it all has to be shown. And on the surface, the political correctness that initially came forward with it had almost safeguards in it that you could be brushed under the rug because nobody's going to say anything about anything. But it's like that mask thing. It's like the who are we really? You know, and what are we prepared to face within ourselves to really be a purified and acceptable society that we want, not just for ourselves, but for our children, for our grandchildren, for, you know, what are we really leaving?
See, like, I'll quickly say this. What I found really interesting is, like, let's say with like when Manny said about the newspaper guy, like, you know, recently, and you've got the directors, and you know, it's all coming, all this, you know, like, which was once accepted, all this underhand stuff. What I find interesting is that it was only a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, we had a movie, Anchorman 2. Remember Anchorman, which we took the mickey out. You know, all that inappropriateness was laughed at and you know, brought up. And it's interesting. It's almost like the chicken and the egg. You know, is that we brought it up and laughed at it, but then we've made it aware. You know, we brought it to the forefront for us to then go, okay, is this you know, yes, it may have happened then, but is it appropriate now? Is this appropriate? Is this right? And I mean, because if we are all one, if male and female, you know, are united and balanced within their own within their own frames, you know, is that you know, a woman is capable of doing many things, and so is a man, and that should always be. If we're united, then are these things now acceptable? And the answer is, of course, not. But it's interesting. That's why it's all coming up to the surface, and as Marilyn said, about like, you know, almost like a cold or lancing a boil. We are lancing the biggest boil in the planet. Yes, we get out the lance. So
but it's all ebbing and flowing as well. It's like as our consciousness raises, as our energy raises, we are, and especially the torchbearers, especially the ones that are being consciously meditative and that are looking at their own consciousness, that are looking at their own mind, that are looking at their own filter system. It brings up a greater emphasis on our own self-analysis. Obviously, you have that intention to be the best you that you can be, but you also have to look at yourself with more scrutiny as to, well, why am I doing that? Why am I acting this way? Why am I, what am I accepting within my mates, within my family, within this, within that, just because I love them, just because, well, they're my mates. It's like Train Spotting. In the film Train Spotting, there's this scene when they all talk about each other, and they talk about Begbie, this psycho guy that goes around stabbing people and everything, and they say, yeah, you know, he does that, but he's a mate, so what can you do? You know. And it's that kind of attitude of how much do we let people off because we love them, because they're our family, because they're our friend, or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Or ourselves, how much are we looking at ourselves? You know, and because we're in the social context that we're in, or we're in the group that we're in, how much of a high standard do we hold ourselves to? That's the point. And it's only when we really stand in that integrity, when we really stand in that light, that we can be in that position for others. And it's becoming more and more that the people who are in these positions of being a TV anchorman, or being a movie star, or being this, that, and the next thing, are being scrutinized in that way more than they were before, because it was all, well, he's a movie star, well, he's a this, he's a that, he's a, do you know what I mean? Well, there is no concessions anymore, because we are moving forward as oneness, as a society, as well. What are we looking towards? What do we really want? Yeah. Sorry, I went off on another tangent.
No more than I did. No more than I did. Juan, have you got anything else that you wanted to add or ask?
Well, very, very short is, I think that we need to remember who we really are in essence. That is in the universal connection. I think that we were talking previously to that, and I think the women and man energies are complementary. I think that if we consider that we are physical, emotional, and spiritual, I should say, I don't know if you are agree with me in this, that I think that women are more emotional and spiritual, and men are more physical and mental. And in both energies, you have the balance, the equilibrium, and with both energies has to be complementary at the end. That's we are working in harmony together to create another kind of civilization. So yeah, that is, I think that's put it in words because there is a lot of confusion. I think that is what Marilyn was talking of, the whole process. So everything is quite extreme in the manifestation of the polarities, and I think that when we center the view of and the end we are, I think that we can be more complementary with each other.
Indeed. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Right, okay. I've got a question for Marilyn. Has anybody else got another question first?
On you go.
Okay, so maybe this is the same thing as what is your doubt, but Marilyn, what would you say are the best skills or qualities for a woman, particularly, to bring out to be who she needs to be in modern day society?
Wow. Okay, that's an interesting. Now, the reason I'm laughing because I know I'm female, but I've had a lot of my friends go, "God, you're so masculine in the way you think." So I'm like, I'm really not the woman to ask. However, as you asked the question, I think one has touched on it already. It must be coming up to 2 years ago, I designed this e-coaching program. I actually didn't think it was that big a deal, but the first exercise was basically, it said, who are you? And I had people ringing me up, emailing me and phoning me to go, I've been looking at that question for hours. I can't answer the question. It's fried my brain. I don't know what to do with that question. And it was just really interesting. So I would say, you know, in terms of, I think women have been in a position for a long time where, you know, I was around in the days of the 80s with the shoulder pads and all that sort of stuff, where women tried to be very masculine and very, you know, and so if I was having to just kind of suggest something, I would say, know who you are. As the old saying goes, know thyself. I think there's such small words. Who are you? Know thyself. It's a small statement, but I'd say that is really, really key, because when you know who you are and you know what you're about and you know what's important to you and you know what I was going to say what you believe in, but I don't even believe that, because I've got a friend, a guy called Art Geiser, and I got a statement from him. He calls it the belief du jour. And it's the belief of the day. What I believe right now, today, you might talk to me tomorrow and I might have learnt something new. I might have had a realization. So now I believe something different. So it's more complex than that. But if you have a sense of self, I think that equips you beautifully in the world to progress, because otherwise, if you don't really know who you are and you don't have a sense of certainty about your mindset, what you think, what you believe, what you're about, what's important to you, you are then swayed by the world, and that's where I think you fall into the trap of trying to be something that you're not. I think as I'm talking now, I remember years ago, I was very excited about becoming a photo reading instructor. And I phoned up this company who were the biggest distributors in the UK. And the guy said to me, he said, oh, I'm not sure we would recommend your trainings because you're a bit too much for our clients, in terms of too effervescent, shall we put it that way. And it was a turning point for me. And I was like, because at first I started going, oh, well, you know, I also work as a Samaritan volunteer, so I have the ability to be quieter and more. And then my brain was like, stop right there. Stop right there. Yes, you have the ability to adapt to your environment, but never do I want you to diminish who you are to fit into somebody else's box and perception of what they think you should be. And this was probably in 2003. We're now at this moment in 2017, but I remember the conversation like it was yesterday, because I put down the phone and I said to myself, Marilyn, that's fine. If he does not like who you are, then that is not the organization for you. That's not the environment for you. And you need to go and find your environment and find your tribe and be the woman that you are, rather than trying to mold yourself into what the world, this guy, and who society thinks you should be. And it sounds very easy. It's not. I'm not going to say it's easy to do. But when you kind of know thyself, if I had to just I'd say I borrow those words, know thyself, and answer the question, who are you? And I think that would stand you in very good stead. And that's probably a very long answer to what was quite a short question.
I love that though. I love that though. I think that is the ultimate answer to everything. You know, the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. You know, what's the answer to everything? Instead of it being number 43 or 24 or whatever it was, it's
42.
Know thyself. You know, I think that is the answer to everything, and ultimately, and on each different level of the onion that you're at. Because it all boils down to the oneness of everything that we're here to discover, ultimately, of our spiritual essence, that we are all really one consciousness that is masquerading as many. In that deepest philosophical, spiritual place, it works for that. But it also, like you say, it works for your individual essence, your individual personality of who are you as who you've incarnated in this incarnation, as a man, as a woman, as Marion, as Robbie, as Juan, whoever, you know, your individual essence. And like you say, it's always changing. when you recognise that the essence of who you are is not fixed. It's like Jim Carrey lately. Everybody's been saying he's been going nuts a little bit, but I think he's had certain existential epiphanies within his spirituality of who is this Jim Carrey. You know, it's like, I am so much more than that. And Jim Carrey can always change. Marilyn Devonish can always change. Robbie McKenzie can always change. It's about what you decide to be. And the essence of who you are is about what you decide within the moment. And you were, like you say, it's not easy when you're being asked to conform, especially if it's like a job interview or something. Do you know what I mean? Will I be a McDonald's employee for this amount of time and be a crew member, which I did when I was 16? And you have to, and you fulfill a certain role, and you take the fries out at a certain time, and you follow these directives, and that's who you are in that finite time. But it always changes, and you're always growing, and you're always learning, and you're always morphing. But when you know thyself, or insofar as you're going to be true to how you feel, your essence, that's your power, Maria, you know, and that's why you're so effervescent, you know what I mean? That's why you've overcome the restrictions or perceived restrictions that people put on you, and you sought your own path, you know. And I've done that myself, so I understand what you mean about the restrictions that can be put in place, or that can be almost forced upon you for people to put you in their box the way they want to see you, to commodify you for their own ends. And it's recognizing, well, you can do that for a certain amount of time, for a certain job, or for a finite point of your life. But ultimately knowing thyself, of your ultimate morphing abilities to what you really want and what you really create with your third eye, to do that is infinite, you know, and that is all boils down to that exactly. Know thyself, you know. So yeah, I could have just said, yeah, I agree with you, but
yeah, no, but we're not that sort of people. That's
so much better than, yeah, I agree with you.
yeah.
Indeed. And I mean, what was I going to say? Yeah, see, I like what your friend said about, you know, about what you believe right now. That's very good enough. It's very Taoistic. The Tao is very much about the now, the moment, living in that moment. So yeah, you know, my way today is this, but you know, and that's like what this is why, you know, what I say about the show, you know, helping us find new techniques, new ways, is that, you know, and I've learned stuff from all three of you. You know, there's stuff from all three that I would definitely say has been added to the collective of Bogido, or Bogidao, and you know, and the whole, but that's how it should be. You know, you should. I mean, so I grew up a little bit. My teachers were partly Japanese, partly Chinese, and yes, I appreciate the Japanese way about honor and about discipline, but also I can see the restrictions about, you know, having things have to be set and always like this. Where the Chinese way, you know, tends to be a little bit more adapting, a little bit more things can change, but also there's restrictions in there. But there's this thing of knowing who you are. That's the set thing. To a certain degree, is knowing who you are, and then but also allowing yourself to adapt, allowing yourself to change. And as you say, Robbie, yeah, I mean, blimey, how many jobs have I had? I mean, I've been a baker, I've been a chef, I've been this, I've been that, and when I wear different hats, you see different sides of me. You know, it's you know, most people don't think that I can do things, you know, like they wouldn't imagine me being calm and collective and focused, but it happens. It does happen, and yeah, it is an interesting thing. Well, anyway, we digress as always. So, any other question? I've got another question or observation more than a question. But has anybody else got something first?
Well,
Oh.
I would say something like we have.
I can't hear Juan at all. It's breaking up.
Yeah. I was going to say, Juan, you're breaking up.
Moment, collective to work again. that humanity
Maybe it's to reboot the connection.
Hold on, no, I think
first a crisis clear. Go ahead.
yeah. As the wonderful Marilyn said, try typing it in. Try typing in what you wanted to say, because actually, now your face is moving, because it was frozen as well. So, okay, Robbie, have you got a question? Otherwise, I think I've got an observation.
Well, I yeah.
No, he's still breaking up. Okay, right, Marilyn, I just want to check something. I just want to check. Is that? Oh, it's not what I thought it was. It's something else. I'm being nosy. I'm being nosy. I am looking on your left hand side. You have I think it's one of the Angel Tarot cards sitting in your mirror cabinet, and I was just trying to work out, because funny enough, I have them here. Oh, I'll take it off the main screen. I think it's one of those, and I'm just I mean, hopefully it's not too personal, the reason it's up there, but which one is it, and what does it signify?
Now, are you talking about the actual decks of cards, or are you talking about the angel wings?
The actual card picture in your mirror. There is. So in the on the other side. So that's the one.
Yeah.
The microphone's off.
The one that's over there, that's the world card, Archangel Michael. And right. So he is holding the shield and the sword of light, and it's the whole thing about, the kind of the major arcana where you've come full circle. So that's the one sitting in that mirror there.
Right. Okay. So is that there for a reason? Is that because you've come full circle? Is that what that is indicating? If I'm not being too presumptuous?
Well, if I were talking about the archangels, I would say that Archangel Michael is my boy. And so it's kind of nice to have him have my back, so to speak, because we talk often. And so from a feng shui perspective, someone had said that there was too much mirror space behind me and reflecting things back and forwards. And so they suggested putting a couple of pictures up. And I thought, well, who better to have than Archangel Michael, given that the poor man doesn't get any peace when I'm around and alert and awake. So.
I love it. And he's on your... He's on your left hand side as well, so which is the Buddha thought in Taoist philosophy. The left hand side tends to be your Buddhist thought side, so it's interesting. So he's the one whispering in your ear. That's cool. Okay, right. So yeah, that was my little observation. I was sort of I'll take you off the main screen now. So I was interested by that, because I know you have a great love for different cards. Actually, that's a question. So with the cards, do you work more on intuition, or do you work more on actually knowing what each individual card says, or both?
Right, I'm laughing now because I did a session on Tuesday. Today is Thursday. I was the client, and I've had a reading with this woman before, and she doesn't. It was a year and a half ago, and she's booked up now until 2018, so she doesn't really remember what she says to her clients. Last time round, she was asking me, "Am I a medium?" And I was like, "No." She says, "Well, they say that you are." And she just kept going on about it. So we have this session on Tuesday, and apparently my grandmother had come through in the reading. And my grandmother says she's a medium. She needs to stop using those cards and just do it on her intuition, because that's how she does it anyway. And so she kept going on about mediumship, and I've been resisting. And if you look at my Facebook post today, because we're back to synchronicity now, I wrote about it because something happened, and I said, well, I've got a 3 times convincer, so I'm going to continue to ignore that message until something else gets my attention, and then there you are. So I would say, for me, I don't teach tarot, but people are always asking me if I will run trainings, and I always laugh and I say, look, I don't think I'd be the best tarot teacher, because quite frankly, there are times I don't even care what it says on the card, because I could read the same card could pop up 5 times for 5 different people, and I'm going to say 5 different things, because every single time I look at the card, something different emerges from it. And so for me, it goes beyond, you know, wands mean this and cups mean that and coins mean that. And yes, there are those threads, the golden threads that run through the meanings. But for me, it's always about what do I notice, what stands out? And a lot of the times, what is it that intuitively comes into my head? Because I did an angel tarot and Huna teleseminar last night. And for the person I was reading for, I call them cold readings, because no one had submitted a question. No one had told me what deck they wanted to use. They just go, dealer's choice, go for it. And so I'm saying to this woman, look, I said, I get the sense that life has been piling things one after the other. And I said, when I was growing up, there was a game called Buckaroo, where there was this horse, this donkey, and you just keep putting things on, and you could put the tiniest little plastic item on and it just explodes. And I was saying, it feels like you've gotten to the point where it's almost too much. And she sent me a message, because she was on the webinar. She says, Marilyn, I was sat in my car today just going, enough. And so, of all the things that I could have said, why would I say that? Because it wasn't in the meaning of the card, it wasn't in the picture. I'm sure if I'd looked at the guidebook, it wasn't in the guidebook. But lo and behold, the words that come out are just beyond random chance. So I would say at the moment, the way I play with the cards is I will use them as a starting point, and then something else will come in and it just flows from there. But as per the conversation on Tuesday, she seems to be rather, bent on the mediumship side, which I don't know. But my convincer is being nudged, let me put it that way, because it won't leave me alone, and it keeps showing up in the most bizarre of ways.
All right, Miss Synchronicity. So I saw that card, yeah, and I had in my head what I wasn't quite sure which one it was, and I had in my head a card. That's why I disappeared for a second to get my cards, and the one I thought it was this one. And you want to know, your convincer, your nudger. I might have to read this to you. In other words, it's Isabella, and it's saying, yes, the timing is right for this new venture. A happy outcome follows your positive expectations. So I think you've been nudged again. Yeah, and that's the interesting thing is like the whole point is, now I look, yeah, it looks nothing. I saw the wings. And I saw like the body, and I saw like a knee. I could see the knee, and I think, well, it sort of looks like it. And I mean, well, actually, now I've got it. No, it's not. It's not that one, and it was totally not that one at all. But it's funny how information comes. Is that when you actually, is like what the subject is talking about, and I suddenly look at the card, and it's like, oh, hold up here. So,
and that's the thing she was talking about, because we were talking about direction for, next year and beyond. And she was saying it would serve you well to make this your new venture. And she was saying, start doing written intuitive readings where you pick one card for someone and you do it by email, and, you just do 10 minutes on it, write the response, send it off. And so and I'm just sitting there thinking, really? Is that really my new venture? Is that really my new direction? Much as I love it, I'm just still, I'm still ignoring the idea, put it that way, but very interesting.
It is indeed, especially when you read that card. But again, it goes, funny enough, it goes back to synchronicity and how I say, like, the universe is always talking to you. The universe is always communicating. It's talking to you all the time. And in our society, we've the modern so-called modern society, we've lost that. We've lost that connect the shaman, the shamanic side of that. Everything is energy, everything is spirit, everything talks to you, everything is one. And I think this is the future and we're sort of at that future of the future of if we start picking up the synchronicities and start looking at stuff and we start paying attention, and then we share that information on to everybody else, that will help everybody else wake up, that will help everybody else. And I just really find it really fascinating, especially like I say, I was taught one side to be a barefoot doctor in Taoist studies, and a barefoot doctor is a mixture of science and spirituality, using massage and the life coaching, Taoist philosophy, but it's also then about the energy work. And then on the other side of that, I was ordained as a dragon dog shaman, which is far more on the esoteric side and far more on the energy side. And there's this, we live in a society where they say, oh no, I don't believe in that sort of stuff. But when you get stuff like this all the time, and like I say, I love being around you, because it's like, and what happened today with Miss Synchronicity and the Synchronistic Diaries. I love watching your live feeds go. What's happened today? What oh my God moment has Marilyn had today? So it's all very, very cool. So are you still with us, Juan? We've lost Robbie. Robbie has obviously got a medium ship to do himself. Yep. So you're still here, my friend.
I have some connection problems, and but I follow you. I follow.
Okay, brother, it's all good. Right, so okay. So Marilyn, what out of all the big list, very long list of all the subjects we've talked about, what have we not talked about much, or what would you like to talk about?
Well, before we do that, given that we've got Juan back and we can hear him, Juan, we didn't hear the question you were asking beforehand because it was breaking up. So did you have a question? I know you did, we just couldn't hear it.
Well, what I was trying to say is that talking about the know that self and know your identity. Can you hear me now? Not really. Yeah, okay. Well, we are just individually working in that identity, but what I perceive is that we have a crisis of identity. Humanity has a crisis of identity. We have lost the experience of our own knowledge, and that is what I perceive that we are now in the process to gain that universal knowledge of ourselves. That is what I was trying. Did I came through this time? Marilyn?
Yeah, well, we heard you say Marilyn, or I heard you say Marilyn, but I missed a bit of the question.
So I heard the bit about you we're trying to gain universal knowledge, but I just missed the last bit that you said after that.
Yeah.
Well, that more than here in the text, so you can see it later, Marilyn and Paul. Just a moment.
Oh, right. Okay. Yep. You text it. You text it. It might be a little bit easier. So I feel your pain, my friend. I feel your pain. I used to have this. I still do sometimes, but I used to have this technical issue myself with the old co-hosts of the questioner and Q. And yes, There were times where they'd be carrying on with the show because my signal had gone, and I'd be sitting there frustrated. But it's all good. It's all good. But hopefully, yeah, you'll text your question. All right. So here we go. So my opinion is that humanity has a collective crisis of identity. Yep. What's your thoughts on that, Marilyn?
Well, that's an interesting one. You could come at it from, I think you could come at it from a number of different angles. One of the things that I've seen talked about a lot is the fact that we now live in the Instagram, Snapchat, selfie world, where you don't see who people really are. What you see is the airbrushed, very neat, very tidy version of them. And I remember being quite shocked when somebody, I won't say the name of the person, I actually take my hat off to them actually for creating a persona in the life that they have created. But in order for them to get the perfect selfie to put on their Instagram feed, they take anything up to 150 photographs. And I was like, man, that's a lot. So what you're seeing is not really who someone is. And so the premise being that particularly young people have an identity crisis because they see perfect images in the world, they believe those to be true, and then they look at themselves and go, oh my god, well I don't match up at all. So I think that's one aspect of it in terms of the social media side. And then there's the other side in terms of the world has changed, society has changed. We have different expectations. Even I remember a couple of weeks ago watching a woman who did a video about the fact that she's somewhat ostracized by society because she's not married, and her name is Tracy Ellis Ross. She's the daughter of Diana Ross. And she did a whole piece for, I think it was Glamour magazine. They had their women's conference, and she was saying that she's been ostracized and looked down upon because she's not married and she doesn't have children. She's in her 40s, but she was talking about the changing face of society and what it actually now means, and the fact that people are making different choices, even though you still live within the constraints of what society thinks you should do and how things should work. So the world as a whole, I don't know, in some respects it feels as though the world is a teenager. We've gone beyond the toddler stage, and we're now getting into the kind of the teenager stage, and it's about re-establishing and finding the identity. And one said something quite interesting about wisdom and the collectiveness of things. Gosh, every month for the past 12 months, I've been doing something called Wisdom Wednesday. And we've gone back as far as Aristotle and Socrates. I've looked at things like Abraham Maslow, Catherine Ponder, right through to, last month, November, well, we're still in November, but technically we'll be out of it tomorrow. I chose Andy Warhol. And what I've wanted to do for people in my groups is to reintroduce them to some of this ancient wisdom. And we actually did have a month where we looked at Know Thyself, and we looked at how far back into history it goes, because I realized that we are very busy reinventing the wheel. And when people read even the words of Abraham Maslow, they were shocked, because if I hadn't put who'd said those words, they would have said, oh, Robbins, or Brendan Burchard, or Oprah Winfrey, or whatever. They would have thought of some modern day guru. And I'm like, actually no. And then when we looked at the words of Socrates and we looked at the words of Aristotle, I even went back to Zeus. Now I know Zeus is a bit more mythical, but when I put those words in front of people, they were shocked at how our society is seeing this stuff as new and trying to reinvent it all when actually it already exists. So I think in terms of society and humanity, I think we're reawakening. I think we're now going back to old values. I think we're rediscovering what our ancestors have long since known, even down to herbs. I did a workshop on the 21st of October, and I was just introducing people to some of the very simple things out of my spice cupboard that have worked. And they're like, oh my God. And I'm thinking, you know what? The ancestors are probably looking down on us and rolling their eyes and laughing and going, finally, they've woken up. So I think we do. I think at the depths of our being, we know who we are. Some people, I think, will find it in this lifetime. I have a sneaking suspicion that some people won't find it until the end of days, when you get to the end of this life cycle and maybe you get a little review. But I think we might appear to be lost. But I think if we really, really took a moment, we know who we are. We're just having to find it again and connect to it again and you know, reestablish it again.
I think it's and it sort of links to Juan's question that he's asked on the side as well. But I think it actually, funny enough, it goes back to your lancing of the boil and the or the cold. Is that I really do feel that at this moment in time there'll be, yeah, there's the thing about was it the 14 the 140, was it the 144,000, and that's this mythical of all these people, these advanced people. And I think that what that actually is talking about is actually the first layer of people that will go through this great wave of rubbish. They're the ones that are facing it right now, and then they'll get through, and then they'll go to the next lot of people. You can get to the other side. You know, this is how we go forward, because I think is like we're so overwhelmed by technology, we're so overwhelmed by this and that, and you know, like we're feeling this loss of connection. I think you need to feel the loss to get back to the gain. I think there is this: the bigger the down, the bigger the up, the bigger the up, the bigger the down. Well, for a lot of people, life is pretty down at the moment. You know, life is pretty low, but I'm a great strong believer in Taoist philosophy of natural, touchy symbol of complementary opposites. Is that we as a society, we think of opposing opposites, yin and yang, right and wrong, and we bash our heads against. But the universe works on complementary opposites, and if we as a society have put ourselves in that massive down, I think it will, you know, and all the crap's going out, you know, the president of America is, you know, you would never have thought in a million years somebody would have you know, wanted somebody like that in the presidency. But I think it's a good thing in a sense of all this stuff's coming up, because of him. It's a catalyst. It's the domino effect. But anyway, I digress. Surprise, surprise. So and cut. Yes. So Juan's question, or the second part of the question for you, Marilyn, was: do you think that we could be kind of addicted to the physical image?
Absolutely. And the reason I said cut is because we've done an hour. So if you wanted to do your cut for the podcast, do you want to do that now, or do you want me to do that question?
Right. Yes. I think we'll quickly cut it. So if you want to find out that question, you got to go and tune into part 2. Evil buggy. So I'd like to thank the wonderful Marilyn. Thank Robbie, wherever he is, off saving the world. And I hope you guys enjoyed part 1. And I love the board, by the way. I love the clapper board. So, guys, hope you enjoyed it. And go back to part 2, which will be for us a few minutes, and for you, if it'll be in one click of a moment. So, take care. Bye for now. Love, Chi, and Shen from The Way of Conscious Mindfulness. Okay, and breathe. Right. So, does anybody need a drink? Or I love this. We've got a written show going on here as well, because this won't actually be seen on the actual YouTube. So anybody who's still watching, they won't know what's going on. We'll just do the rest of the show in text. Okay. So right. So we'll start again in 5, 4, 3. Hi, and welcome to The Way of Marilyn Devonish 2, Part 2. Now, Part 1, surprise, surprise, me and Marilyn, Juan and Robbie went off on a bit of a tangent. We've talked about lancing of boils, and we've talked about angel cards and meanings and synchronicities, and what Marilyn's next profession may be, and we're back on to part 2. So in part 1, the mighty Juan, he asked a question, and the question, of course, was for Marilyn, and the question was, we were talking about, I'll go back a little bit. It says we were talking about, his opinion was that humanity is a collective crisis of identity, and then the question was, do you think, Marilyn, that we could be kind of addicted to physical image?
And that's an interesting one, because looking at that second part and sort of also in saying, are we addicted to the physical image and are we missing the spiritual? I don't know. This is just one of my, what I call a Marilyn-ism in terms of the way I make sense of the world. I kind of believe in this thing called spiritual path, and that we're going to be on a path in this lifetime. And some people's path will be to explore spirituality and, you know, life and the universe and the cosmos and how does it all work. And for some people, that is not the path they are on at all. And it might be that in terms of, let's say, the evolution of the soul, if you thought of it in terms of young soul and old soul, and a young soul is just here to kind of have a great time and have a party, which is fantastic. And then you've got the old soul who's done that and now is exploring, you know, what does it mean to be a human being? What is the meaning of life? I think from that perspective, people who we might say are missing the spiritual, they're probably not, I would say maybe they're not missing anything at all. They are just having their life experience. And at this time in their incarnation, that's what they're here to do. To focus on, how can we say, that the practicalities of life, what you might call the material aspect of life, and then the spiritual would come a bit later. So for that one, I really, I'm like, you know what, given that everyone is on their path, for those for whom the spiritual isn't important, great. And for those for whom it is important, great. And for everything in between, great. But I really think, you know, it's that whole but I think when people then have gotten to the stage where they want to look at those aspects of themselves, the physical, because, you know, I'm running a workshop in, you know, day after tomorrow, and it's called the Mind Body Spirit Energy Fest, and we're looking at what can you do to enhance the mind, the body, the spirit and the soul. And so from that perspective, it's a more rounded view. And the reason I came up with that concept and idea in terms of the workshop format, we've got her in our 7th year now, is because I recognized that all of my focus and attention was going on to one part of my life, and I was neglecting the others. And so I wanted a more rounded approach to that, because I did feel I was missing something. However, I would say if that's not the path that someone is on in their world, they're probably not missing out, because it doesn't even exist for them as a dimension. But, you know, for me, I have definitely benefited from having a more rounded approach, because it's a bit like a wheel. If part of the wheel is smashed in or flat or, you know, diagonal, you're not going to get smooth flow. And I found that things for me personally flow more smoothly when I am paying attention to those aspects. And of course, you know, when my personal development journey started with, you know, the loss of physical health, that was a big wake-up call, because I recognized that the other stuff doesn't really mean anything. I remember I you know, with the illness that I'd gone from a natural size 8 and I ballooned up to a size 16. And I remember lying in bed looking, I had like a walk-in wardrobe, and the door was cracked open. And so I'm lying in bed with no energy. I was sleeping 12 to 15 hours a day at that point. And I just looked through the crack of the door, and suddenly I had this, and this was probably 1996, 1997. And I looked through the crack of the door, and my brain was like, you know what? You've got all those beautiful designer clothes in that wardrobe. You can't wear any of them. Number one, you can't fit into them. But number two, even if you could, you don't have the energy to carry them off. And it was like a way, and the wake up call, it took another 3 or 4 years for it to really land in my psyche. But when I look back at that time, it's like, you know what, if I'm not looking after my physical body, then there's no capacity to even hold my spirit and my soul. And we all know that there are people out there who in terms of the material world and success, they have everything, and still they're not happy. Some of them may even take their own lives. And when that does happen, everybody's like, oh my God, you know, they had the dream life. What's going on? Well, clearly not, because I think some of those aspects in terms of what the mind, the body, or the soul was requiring was not being fulfilled. But have they really missed out? I don't know, because they might come back, if there's such thing as a reincarnation, they might come back in their next incarnation and just take the world by storm in terms of their spirituality. So that for me is one of the unknowns of life in terms of, you know, what's next on all of our paths.
Indeed. Yeah, I mean, it sort of, well, it actually brings up one thing and then like a statement. I mean, for me, you know, balance is the key. I don't want to say too much, but you know, the three ones: mind, body, and spirit. The three M's is known also in qigong and whatnot, which is the medical, martial, meditational. So that you're talking about the will. You know, if those three aren't fulfilled and flowing, then yeah, you're going to get an imbalance. The thing it brought up as well was the interesting thing is this thing of how do I put this? So is personal, you know, is personal balance and society balance is the like what I mean by is like, you know, for some people who do not have, you know, who are not attached to that spiritual side, their spiritual is their physical, and as long as they're happy and they're balanced, because Taoistically, as long as you're internally happy, as long as you're connected to you, whatever your you is, then that is the Tao, that is your Tao, and that's the whole point of that. You know, somebody who's, if they're happy with their material stuff, and as long as they're truly happy, that's fine. But if they're not happy, then they need to seek that balance. But so this thing of, as a society, we're out of sync. It's not so much about the individuals, or it is to a degree, but if an individual is happy to themselves, because what I'm sort of rambling on about is that for some people, this is already heaven. You know, so some people, they're already happy and they're already in their ideal job and doing, and then you get other people who are not. And it's the action of doing, isn't it? It's the action of, if you can recognize you're not happy, it's the doing something about it. It's like, you know, you weren't happy, but it was also, and even that recognition at that point, you know, looking at your dresses, you said it still took a couple of years, but you obviously achieved it because here we are today. You know, so it's this interesting thing of individual balance and happiness, but also the balance of society as well. And I think as a society, we are definitely lacking. We're you know, that we are falling apart. But I think it's about those individuals coming together and balancing it off, if that makes sense. Somebody.
Yes, that I would say that makes perfect sense. And you know, even that question, what is happiness? You could line up 25 people and get 37.5 different answers, and all of those answers would be correct, because that's what it means to that particular person. So I do think it's about, you know, where is the individual at, what is it for them, and what is their life about, and if they are fulfilling what the life is about for them. And I think, you know, it can change as well, because you can see people who have been, you know, crazy party animals in their, you know, teens and 20s, and they're very serious in terms of, you know, head down workaholics, and then suddenly give it all up and go and spend 5 years in an ashram, you know. So it's almost like they've had several different lives.
Yeah.
In this one lifetime.
Yeah, and again, I think that's good. You know, is that, you know, if that's what you, I think the bottom line is personal responsibility. Is this thing of, is be happy within your life. If you want to accumulate wealth, then be happy doing it. If you want to go and live off in an ashram, be happy doing it. That was the ultimate thing. Is something I learned as a kid. I went off and I did there was a stage like in my 20s that I started doing stuff for the Red Cross, and it was this interesting thing that I was doing this stuff for the Red Cross, helping the Red Cross, and for like a very selfish or sort of a selfish moment is that I was expecting when I said, oh, I'm helping, doing stuff in the Red Cross. I sort of, for some reason, and it was unlike me, or it's unlike me now, but at the time, sort of, I was expecting people to be more impressed than it was, and it was a realization where it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't, I swear a little bit. It does, nobody really gives a crap what you do. It's because that's what you do. It's more about what it's yourself. It has to make you happy, and that was the realization of don't do things for others, or don't do things because people expect you to do them. You have to do it because you want to do it. That is a big scary concept for a lot of people because we are so governed by society. It's like I saw that I think it was a documentary, or I remember seeing about that person who was taking hundreds of photographs just to get that that ideal image. I mean, the women who again depends on your point of view, but the women who totally radically change their body because they feel they should. Are they doing that because it's a personal thing for them, or are they doing that because society says that they should? There's a very interesting conversation I once had with an ex-partner of mine about women, and she would say is that women don't dress up for men, women dress up for women. Women dress up to impress other women. They don't actually do it to actually impress the men. And I found that you shouldn't actually be trying to impress anybody. You should be happy in your own skin. Personal opinion. Maybe that's why I'm always a scruffy git. But well, actually, that's not really. Even that's not true. I do scrub up every now and again. And I normally end up wearing my Oriental suit. So I've got a collarless. I love my collarless silk suit. So if I have to be smart, I'm normally wearing something like that. If I could get away with carrying a lightsaber at the same time, I'd be in my element. But anyway, I digress. But yeah, it's this interesting thing about that could be a subject all on its own, like you say. Is this thing of happiness? Happiness is such a personal thing. Is that what your happiness is, and what my happiness is, and what Juan's happiness is, and what Robbie's happiness is. They all could, and more than likely, are completely different, or at least slightly different. And it's just an interesting, and so that's the question. If your aim is to, as I waggle a Lucozade bottle about, your aim, where's my lightsaber? That's better. Your aim is to find your own happiness. Do you think there is a fear in people that their happiness may make other people, by them being happy, they may be being selfish to other people? Do you think that is what possibly stops people from actually obtaining their own happiness? If that makes sense.
I know with many of the, let's say, friends and even clients that I've got, they have what I might call cultural and social restrictions on their level of happiness, because what they do has to be in alignment with what family want and tradition and that sort of thing. And so I think sometimes, and I always say I'm quite lucky that I don't have those cultural restraints. There are no big expectations on what I'm supposed to be doing. So all of the restrictions that I carry, the majority of them I created myself, and probably still continue to create in some respects, in some aspects. So I think sometimes there are bigger constraints. There are constraints that are bigger than people. And also I think it would come down to mindset. And for me, I had a realization years ago with regards to my energy. where, you know, it was a time I was needing to sleep 12 to 15 hours a day just to function. And then I flipped that, and now I will sleep 2 to 3 hours a night, and I'll be flying like the Duracell bunny. But one of the realizations I had was I was sitting in a room of, 75, 80 people. And I thought, you know what, no matter how deeply I breathe and how much I hyperventilate, there is no way that I can suck all the energy out of this room. There's no way I can use up all of the oxygen supply. And I would say the same goes for happiness. And it's almost like the reverse for me. The happier you are, and for me, it started with energy. I figured out the more energy I have, the more I can give that to other people. Because I came first from a premise of, I don't have enough energy. Therefore, I can't really be around people for too long because they drain my energy and they suck my energy away and they take away my life force. And when I suddenly had the realization that actually, why don't I make it so that I have so much energy that I can just be a source of energy, and you come, you take what you need, and I just get immediately replenished. There's enough for everyone. And I feel the same way about happiness, because people who are happy and joyful, they're like a beacon of light. And they spread that happiness wherever they go, and they leave a trail of happiness in their wake. And they are not diminished by that. They are, just speak for myself, that when I'm joyful and when I'm happy, I am energized by sharing that around, rather than thinking I've got to hold on to it and I've got to restrict it and I've got to make, it's like, nah, be that. And I think it's about vibration, because people who are not into that vibe, you will repel them. They just won't be around you. Yeah. So, I don't really worry about that too much anymore. And I just say to people, look, we've all got free will and free choice. And if somebody wants to jump on your happiness train and ride on your happiness vibe, they can choose to do so. And if they don't choose to do so, you can't necessarily let that then dictate the way that you will operate, because you have to just go, they've made their choice, I've made mine. And if we're not in the same direction, it's all good. Have a nice life. I'll see you over there, or maybe I won't.
Yeah. And
that is.
Go on, Juan.
Said this fantastic philosophy, and I completely agree with you in that point. It is what we have to create, happiness, but that has to be based also in its inner identity, a commitment of who you are and your experience, because otherwise you should be making theater, and from that you are with integrity, manifesting your own experience. And I think that that is something that I perceive clearly for Marilyn. It is money from identity, and it is what we also need to get collectively. That is because we are not collective. That crisis cannot manifest our happiness.
Yeah. You broke up a little bit, but I think we got the gist. And
yeah,
yes, it's all about. Funny enough, synchronicity there. It's very Taoistic. It is very much, I know it was said in Christianity as well about, overflowing. Your cup needs to be overflowing, and there is this. We've got into a society where we protect everything that's ours, and there's this interesting thing. There's this in Taoism, they don't like shields. Like in certain spiritualities, they talk about creating a shield and protect, create a brick wall or create a shield. And the Taoist concept, because everything has a martial concept, has a medical concept, and spiritual concept. And martially, having a shield is like having a target. Is that if you have a big shield protecting you, that the darkness can see and it will focus on the target. But if you have a filter, if you filter away what you don't want, and you obviously law of attraction, you focus on what you do want. So if you're focused, like Marilyn's focused on happiness, as she said, as you say, if you're focused on happiness and being happy and finding that and being abundant in that happiness, then you'll attract. Like attracts like. You attract more people happy, and that happiness is like, I've found this a lot, is that when I'm being happy and laughing and being silly and making other people laugh, all the miserable gits, they seem to filter away because they can't seem to get what they want. And that's that interesting again. There's a great I'll send you guys the link. There was the great one about bullying. I don't know if you've seen this video. There's this guy is talking to these school kids about bullying, and obviously he gets this girl to say mean things about him, and first he tries to defend himself, and say, oh, you're mean, you're not, you're being nasty, and she's throwing more and more stuff. But then when he reversed that, when she said you're four eyes, and he says, yes, well, I do need glasses, and says, you're stupid, says, well, yes, sometimes I do make a mistake. And then he says to her, oh, you're so beautiful, and you're so lovely, and you're so wise. And of course she's trying to come up with these nasty things to say, and he just keeps giving her compliments. And I know it's sort of what I did learn at school, is that if you just be silly or you make fun of the situation, or one of my biggest sayings was, if I can take the mickey out myself better than anybody else can, they can never harm me or upset me, because I can do it better than them. And that reminds me of Steve Martin. There's a great comedian called Steve Martin, and he did a film called Roxanne. And in Roxanne, there was 20-something betters. In this film, is actually based on an old French film, and he has this big long nose. And this guy takes the mickey out of him with his big nose, and he says, "Is that all you can come up with?" And basically, the guy throws a dart, and the dart hits 20, and he has to come up with 20-something betters. And every time that the character Steve Martin is taking the mickey out of himself, he's actually taking the mickey out of that person. Because every time he comes up with something more funny, all of Steve Martin's friends and all of that guy's friends are laughing, and they're laughing at the fact that it's even more funny, and it's that thing of there will be negativity, there will always be darkness you can focus on, but if you focus on the light, if you set your filter for ray and sunshine and happiness and abundance, that's what you're more likely to get. If you have a shield or you're protecting yourself from something, you're giving everything else a target, rather than you just set your filter for happiness, and then it will just not want to be there. If that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I know for me, one of the things when I started, because I went from being very, very quiet and very shy and lacking in confidence, couldn't even speak to my own family, never mind public speaking. And then when I started doing public speaking and doing kind of live TV and radio and speaking at these big industry shows, people would always come and comment. Like, they might come and want a book signed, or, buy a product, something like that. And they go, oh my God, you're the same off stage as you are on stage. And at first it puzzled me. I'm like, well, who else am I going to be? And finally, after I remember I was at Olympia, I think it was a vitality show. I think I was speaking at that time for Here's Health magazine. No, I was speaking for Durex, actually. They wanted a different twist on relationships, and they wanted to get beyond just being seen as a kind of fast food kind of company, if you know what I mean. And so after the third or fourth person in line said it, I said, excuse me, I said, do you mind if I ask you, what do you mean by that? In terms of, I'm the same off stage as I am on stage. I said, so many people have said it to me while I've been here. And she said, oh, sometimes you speak to people when they get off the stage and they're nothing like they were on stage. So they might be really funny and open on stage, and then you get off stage and it's all a bit rushed, and it's all a bit, yeah, whatever, next. But when I was teaching people about public speaking, I would always say, be yourself. and have nothing to hide, because the minute you go up in front of people and you've got that shield up, or you're like, oh my God, I hope they don't ask me out this, or I hope they don't talk about that, or I hope I don't get that question. I'm like, you know what's going to happen? Mm-hmm. Whether or not you believe in the law of attraction, you will probably find that 9 times out of 10, the very thing that you fear is the very thing that the audience or somebody in the audience will go, you know what, something's not right here. And they're going to try and look behind the facade. And when they get a hook into it, they're going to rip it to shreds, and you're going to be left standing and vulnerable. So I say, you know what, my best suggestion would be yourself. And I think you can have varying degrees of yourself, because of course, when I'm in corporate land, they have no idea what I do. They just think I'm a Prince 2 project manager and a management consultant. That's as far as it goes. So they won't see the other facets, but I'm still myself. So that there is oh my God, I just say to people, it's the only way to fly. I can't be doing with it otherwise, because then you'll just be fearful the whole time about, you know, being found out and, you know, having to keep up a persona. And quite frankly, I think if you've got too many personas, you can forget who you are. It's just really confusing.
Indeed. Yeah, it is. I mean, yeah. Well, you've got to be happy in your own skin. You've got to be happy with who you are. You've got to be you, you know. And it's as well. You know, it's quite funny, because I know about your story, you know, Marilyn, to, you know, what I've heard and read, and it's the same. Most people would not. When I tell people that as a child I was very shy, the dyslexia was very strong. I had a very strong stammer, and I'd rather hide away, and I'd rather, you know, be in my own little world and doing all my drawings than actually, you know, being out the forefront. Most people think I'm off my rocker. Most people think I'm making it up because they're so used to this great loud. But it is me, you know. I am shy, I am introvert, and I am extrovert. I'm both at the same time, because it's I've learned that, you know, you have those shadows, you know, but you come through the other side. You know, it's the what was it, like the test of adulthood? You know, you have these difficulties, you have these challenges, and you know, there's 2 options. You either you get through them, which is actually success, or you run away from them, which you can see as failure, but it's still there. It's always there. And you know, is that there's an interesting thing. I've had friends. I've sort of actually lost friends, and who have said, "Oh, you should give up trying to, you know, do Tai Chi full time or do this full time, because it hasn't worked yet, so it will never work." And it's like, no, because my nan had my mum's nan had a very famous Irish saying, which is, or at least famous in my family, which is, a broken clock is right twice a day. So the philosophy, so it doesn't matter what time of day it is, sooner or later it's going to be right at least twice. Yeah. So I took that philosophy, and it was a hold up. That means, the metaphor of that means is, whatever you do, whatever you believe, at some point it will be right. Whatever you wear, at some point will be fashionable. So at some point, wearing a plastic bag on your head will be a fashion. So I'm still waiting for that day. But you know, so I've always had that, you know, exactly. So I say that, and I haven't got a plastic bag available, but I've got a bowl. That'll have to be the best I can do. Now I feel like I need some clangers, and I'll be like a monkey.
Like a monk.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Why? Yeah. I've actually got the monk. I've got the monk spot. Apparently, because it started off very small in my 20s, and the Chinese fortune teller said 2 things. Firstly, he saw that he's yes, you know, you are a reincarnation of a Buddhist and Taoist monk. And the other thing he said is that I will live until the year 2222. That means I will live until I'm 252 years old. So I'll have to wait and see. Hopefully, some of you guys will be still around for me to actually say, "Look, see, I'm still here." But otherwise, I'll be saying to myself. But yeah, so there is this thing of never give up, never give up. What makes you happy? What is it that makes you happy? And then keep doing it. And sooner or later, that will be the right thing to do.
Can I say something? Yeah, well, I think that is just what reading the collective energies, in my opinion, is what happens to humanity. Humanity is too shy to fulfill the full potential of our identity. We are collectively shy of afraid of whatsoever to manifest ourselves collectively in the full potential of our power of energies. So I think that is something more than individual, it's in something more collective. We are in the confusion, we are in the crisis of identity, and we still miss, in my opinion, the stamina to create that happiness collectively. I don't know if you look also, Marilyn, in the concept, in the global concept limitations, where we are just lacking, in my opinion, the embrace true energies in the universe. What do you think about? Do you think that is a more than individual problem, it's a collective problem that is a reflection of that people feel of the?
For me, I think that I think we live in, and it's not, it just is. I think we live in quite a judgmental world. So I really understand why people don't want to stand up and stand out and be the one who's different, because it's not an easy place to be in. And when you're a pioneer, a lot of the times you are laughed at. And even Einstein, one of the most brilliant genius minds that the modern day world has known, there were things that he kind of talked about but didn't push the idea because he knew it was too out there, and he knew that because he wasn't that certain himself, that he held back. And one of those ideas, I think it was 100 years to the day after he first postulated it, about these gravitational waves, science could finally prove it. And it was the same with Carl Jung, with this, Sifa and I talk a lot about synchronicity, but it was exactly the same with Carl Jung. It was nearly 30 years before he actually put that in an official paper. Because he recognized that being that out there would damage his credibility, would damage the fact that he wanted to be seen as a more scientific man and garner that respect. So even some of the greatest minds of our time have had things that they've held back on because of the way they might be viewed in society. And so I think the trailblazers in the world are rare and should be coveted. And there are times where they might not get vindication in their lifetime. I was, talking to one of my group, my membership group, a couple of weeks ago about Andy Warhol. And I think one of his paintings had just sold for something like $28 million. But I was saying, but compare and contrast that with somebody like Van Gogh, who only sold 2 paintings in his lifetime and probably died feeling like a failure. And feeling that his idea of art and his idea of beauty and his idea of creativity was not appreciated by the world. I think, and so as a collective, when you see the way the world turns on someone who is a pioneer and who's innovative, I totally get why collectively, I think in Australia, they call it the tall poppy syndrome, and that you don't want to be the tallest one because somebody's going to come and whoosh, and cut you down to size. And so I think in the world in general, yes, we are quite constrained, but there's always rule breakers. There's always people who are going to be out there pioneering, doing something different, and sometimes the world will catch up with them, and sometimes it's going to take 100 years before science can go, okay, Einstein was right. There is this thing called gravitational waves.
Yeah.
Or yes, now we love those pictures, but we didn't appreciate it while you were alive. So I think it takes courage to go out there and be a pioneer and stand up and be counted and potentially be laughed at. And you know, like you were saying, you know, give it up, it's not going to work. It's like it takes courage to go out and do that. And I don't think that courage is something that everybody has. I think sometimes you have to develop it and learn it, and the world isn't always supportive of the pioneers and the innovators.
No.
I agree. And there's this interesting, interesting Darius concept as well, is that it goes back to the ancient point of view of is that all ideas are given to many people, even though those people may individually think they're the only person with that idea. And how the concept was put about is that you throw 1,000 seeds into the air, into the wind, into the ground, but out of that 1,000 seeds, only 100 of them will actually, or only 500 of them will actually hit the ground. The rest will go in the air and end up in streams, or end up, the birds will eat. And then the ones that hit the ground, only out of those couple of hundred, only 50 of them will actually germinate. And out of that 50, only 5 or 10 of them will actually start to grow. And it's this thing of that there's this cosmic idea that the universe will throw out an idea of everything, and that person, it's up to, you know, as a collective consciousness, those ideas can be within hundreds of people. There's been scientifically proven that certain people have had ideas for a certain car or a certain combustible engine. Somebody else comes in, and there's somebody else on the other side of the planet had no connection whatsoever to them, but also had that idea. So ideas can work through the cosmos or work through the collective, but it's that individual that has to have that strength and that power to then keep that idea going and move it forward. And there is this really interesting thing like modern science. There's lots of things that are in social science, in the consciousness of this society. Oh yes, science is this and this, but there is lots of things. Is like, since the reason, I've said this countless times on the show, the reason why we have blind case studies is because back in the 1920s, I think it was actually started off in 1910, when they were doing the quantum physics experiment, they found that, especially with the micro, that the observer was affecting the experiment. So they had to take out the observer from the experiment to allow the experiment to actually happen. So the reason you have blind case studies in modern society, in science, they're blind case studies because the observer affects the experiment. And that was, you know, back in 1910, that, you know, there was already that hint that what you focus on grows. Well, you know, that you have the ability to change reality. And it's already there. The information's already there. The FBI did a thing where they had a group of people that came together and focused. They had 200 people, I think it was the first experiment, had 200 people, brought them all together in a hotel and did a meditational weekend and focused on meditation, love and peace. And the crime rate in that city dropped by 15%. They did it in Washington State, and they dropped the crime rate by 20%. Again, you know, so there's all this interesting stuff that's out there, and, you know, beliefs and ideas all exist, and it's all about bringing them into consciousness, you know, bringing them into that reality. And I think the interesting thing is that thing of, are you going to be that seed that grows into a tree, or are you going to be something else? You know, is that, can you, like Marilyn, can you create an abundance, an overflowing cup? Can you fill your cup with so much happiness and so much enthusiasm that that you will, that you'll be able to do no matter what. I mean, it's a couple of months ago now, I did a workshop with David Wolf, the raw food guy, and he talks about about his about his enthusiasm, and he does all these things. And then it was funny, it was interesting how is that he was actually then saying to me, "Man, you've got so much energy. You're so bubbly. You're so you're so full of you." And even his guys, his little entourage of guys who are saying, "You're so full of energy. You must we'll try to actually arrange the next one we do in Europe. We want you to sort of be there to do the event organising, because I'm buggy. I'm just very, very bubbly." But it's the whole thing of knowing that you can be, and allowing yourself. Now, only one difference, maybe, I don't know if this is a difference to Marilyn, because I think you do it just in possibly a different way, is I know through the Warhammer, the bigger the up, the bigger the down. So if you're going to be super, super bubbly and have loads of energy, at some point, naturally, life can pull you down. So what I do is, when I did that event, I got home and I did a couple hours of qigong and some meditation, and that neutralized the bigger the up, the bigger the down. I brought myself into balance, into harmony on my own, because if nature does it, you could go to where I always say to some people, like, think of a party, not with alcohol, but think of a party or an event where you had a really, really good time, and did you the next day feel a little bit forlorn, a little bit, lost a little bit of vitality? And it's like, well, that's because nature will pull you down with a thump. So it's this idea of either keep that cup overflowing, like the Marilyn way, or do some meditation, learn to balance, learn to, when you're on a tightrope, if you don't wobble both ways and you only wobble one way, you're going to fall off. So, it's like learning that balance, learning to go with the flow.
Absolutely. And just coming back to what you said about the ideas, that made me smile, because I was talking to someone, funny enough, about it a couple of days ago, and I was explaining to them this thing about being a pioneer and sometimes being too early, because it was probably 1995, 1996. I was a conference and event manager, and so my job was to come up with ideas for commercial conferences for business, write the conference, enroll the speakers, find sponsors, and run these events. And I had an idea, working with a colleague, that the next big thing might be this thing called smart cards. And the premise of smart cards, because nobody had ever heard of them, I said they're credit card size cards. They look like a credit card, and you preload them so that you can pay for travel like train and bus. And also you can buy small items, like newspapers and food and all the rest of it. And my boss didn't see the vision of smart cards, so I wasn't given any funding, so I had to shelve that idea. And of course, now everyone in London has an Oyster card. A lot of people now have Apple Pay, and we use that to pay for travel, we use it to pay for small items. And now your debit cards and cash cards, you just tap, and I think it's a £20 limit or something like that, but you can buy a small item. So that was the vision of the smart cards idea, which my boss didn't let me run with it. And so it's like, okay, maybe it's not a good idea. I thought it was a good idea, and now of course everybody's got one. And also I remember I wanted to do a conference about the power of websites for business. And I went to the big 5 telecoms. I'm talking about the BTs, the Deutsche Banks, the Telefonicas of this world. And every single one of them refused to speak and said, we do not see a time where we would need to have a corporate website. Can you believe that?
Well, yeah, I can, because I remember, I remember that sort of era, and there's a lot of people say, no, computers are never really going to kick off. They're only for the scientists. They're only for like all the military. There's never going to be a time where you're going to have computers in a home. That's only for the rich. It's like, no, you think of that idea, expand it out, and that's what you do. And so because anything can go like that. But that's the point. It's thinking ahead. It's and you need those go-getters. You need those people who can think ahead, or can sometimes, who are not afraid to necessarily commit professional suicide on an idea and stick with it. It's the way forward. It is what it is, and I haven't got. Oh, I actually got a cup. It's full of charcoal. But salute to all you go-getters. Salute to all you people who never give up. I appreciate you and I need you. Salute to all the people who know the broken clock theory. Remember that twice a day, at least. So yeah, it's all very good. Right, I think we might want to wrap up now. Juan, is there anything else that you would like to add, or say, or ask?
Well, I think not so far. I think that was quite interesting conversation today. The enthusiasm of Marilyn is indeed overwhelming. I sometimes listen to her videos and follow her energy, because it's quite motivating. And that is beautiful to see that there is people that is able to manifest and contribute to humanity with this kind of beautiful energies. But for me, it's just that little bit sensation that we are just limited by the clumsy one. That sometimes people who don't want to work in a team, they are the ones that are avoiding to score humanity in a quite higher level, So that is, but well, I'm quite optimist, and indeed, the witnessing that there is people growing and motivating, like Marilyn, like you and your show, and other people, of course, that I have been watching in other shows. I'm really happy to see that people is getting that likeness to the universe, and that is that we are divine consciousness. We are not an image of the creator in the physical way. We are just divine consciousness, and that is the real likeness of and the reason why we were created. So once that we are able to match that in equilibrium, that's universal consciousness, we can score quite much better in the complete contest. So that is for me beautiful to see how you are contributing and working for that beautiful energy and happiness in the world. And that is the reason why I wanted also to participate, because Marilyn is that also a person who is doing indeed you too and many other people. So I think that the team concept is for me very important.
Yeah, we are a team. We are a team of separate parts and also all working together, and that's the point. And that's why I've loved this show. I've loved doing this show, because it is that, like a pot of different ideas and bringing people together, and there's whatever happens, is I've always got that contact with Marilyn now, Agent 35, and I will treasure that, and yourself and Robbie, and it's and I think for me that's what life is all about. It's about meeting people, and you don't meet people unless you take that leap. You find, you go out and communicate, and it's like, well, I shouldn't speak for Marilyn, but I know myself, I could have hidden away from the world. I could have, where I was very shy, and I could have stayed, hiding away from the world. But all these adventures, both good and bad, but they're all adventures that I've had because I was willing to. I took that leap. I took that move forward, and having that full cup You know, that overflowing bowl does keep you going, and you know, and yes, the law of attraction. It's all really cool. So yeah, so thank you, Juan. Thank you so much for coming on the show again. It's great to have you on the show. And Marilyn, are there any final thoughts? Any last things you'd like to say?
Final thought. Now, you asked me a question earlier about, is there anything we haven't talked about? Now, so just to answer that question, given that you did ask it earlier, but we talk about it on the periphery so much. But for me, and one talked about the whole thing about the world and the energy and the kind of consciousness. And I would say one of the things that keeps me going, particularly, you know, when you, like you said, the ups and the downs, the dark and the light, however you want to put it, is this idea. I know it's going to sound crazy, but it's this idea of synchronicity. Because for me, synchronicity is almost like the universe is talking and sprinkling these little breadcrumbs along the way. And so if there are a final thought, I would say to people in those times where things don't appear to be going right, or where you're just not sure about the direction, look out for the universal signals and signs, because it has been in those moments where I might be thinking, there have been times I sat at my desk and I was like, you know, I'm writing my e-newsletter, which takes sometimes about 2 hours to do. And I was like, God, why am I wasting my time? Does anybody ever read these things? I kid you not. Just as I had that thought, I had an email coming going, oh, hi, Marilyn. I don't often communicate, but I just wanted to say thank you so much for your newsletters. I really enjoy them. I've been getting them for about 9 years now. And I was just like, wow. So if there was, you know, it's one of the things that keeps me sane. It's one of the things that lets me know that kind of in a way the universe has our back. Even when it appears that the world is in chaos, there is almost like this divine order in amongst the crazy chaos. So I think that would be my final thought. And I also just wanted to say thank you to Juan for that very lovely summary. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you again, because I really enjoyed your show. Thank you also to Robbie, who is off doing his wonderful mediumship, and a hello and thank you to Chris, who couldn't be here tonight, but he is the fabulous questioner. So if you've been watching Boggy's show over the past year, you most certainly would have seen Chris. And to you, Paul, I want to say that I think these shows are such a great idea. I know the commitment that it takes to do something on such a regular basis, but my suggestion, if I were throwing it into the pot, would be, because I run, you know, I'm reevaluating if I want to carry on, but every single month I run an Angel Tarot and Huna energy clearing call, and I do individual readings and energy clearings, but it runs every month, but the days are completely random. So I might run it on a Tuesday, and next month it might be on a Wednesday, and then it might be on a Saturday afternoon. Now, of course, I give people notice, but I just knew I couldn't commit to a set day because my life isn't structured in that way. So the suggestion I put into the pot is, I do hope that you still continue to find random days where you can schedule this stuff in, because it's just been wonderful to be a guest and to be a co-host for people like Juan. So thank you.
Yes. I mean, for those who may not know, after this year, it will no longer be every Thursday, because I've had the call in to go back to doing qigong. I'm actually going to do, being out there again, I'm actually going to do a qigong Reiki class. Is for some people this is totally unheard of, but basically the Reiki concept and the qigong concept, I'm putting it together. Actually, in China, that's actually what you do all the time, is that the Reiki is actually done as like a spiritual upload for your qigong, and vice versa. In the Reiki in Japan and the Reiki in China, it's called Shun Qi Shen. In Shun Qi Shen, you do qigong exercises to build up your energy, to increase your energy. So that's what I'm going to do. But yes, don't worry, Marilyn, there will still be the shows. They just be on different days. They may not be every week, but they will be definitely at least 2 a month, if not more. They will still, because I've still got I've got my own. I think I've got about 10 people already who want to do a show for next year. I know you've got a good couple of people interested. I think Robbie's now starting to build up a blooming list. And there's Anne Jersh, one of our past guests. She's always finding me more people. So finding guests has never been the issue. But it's because of my life. I had one day a week, which is set. And then it's been that juggle. And even when I started the show a year and a half ago, it was, do I do a class again, go back into doing the classes and do what I want to do, or do I do the show? And I chose the show, and now I'm going to choose the class. But yes, I'm glad I've done it, and it has been fun, and it will not stop. It will just change. That's all. It will just change.
Good news.
Indeed. It'd be cool. So don't worry, you can all be co-hosts again in the future. Okay. And I'll be looking forward to that. And as I say, I've really enjoyed it. It's been great fun. Oh yeah, and Marilyn, don't forget. So, and synchronicities. That's yeah. I love that idea. I got reminded today through this, and that's what I love about the show. I got reminded by the Marilyn and the overflowing, that abundance. Create your own abundance. That is a qigong technically, that overflowing, and then knowing the bigger the down, the bigger the up. But then and listening for those synchronicities. They're always there, and I love as you said, Juan, I love the enthusiasm from Marilyn. It's like when you watch, and it's, oh my God, this happened today, and oh my God, that's happened today, and that's why I always take the mickey out and say, oh, it was synchronicity. What's happened now? Come on, let's hear the new saga. Let's hear the new story, and it's all good. So I would like to, for once, be quiet and say thank you so much. To Juan for being a co-host. It was great to have you.
For having me.
Oh man, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure and an honor. Thank you, Robbie. Robbie, where are you? Thank you. He'll probably come back in about 30 seconds after we go. So thank you, Robbie. And again, you guys take time out of your day to come do this show. And Marilyn, ever since you come on the show, it was 6 months ago, and you got, and it's brilliant. As my nan would have said, it warms me cockles. It warms my heart to know that that you guys all enjoy the show too. And it's great. It is a great feeling. So thank you so much, Marilyn, for this wonderful show. Very interesting show, because it was almost like a subject show. But it was a guest subject show, I think, because I'm not sure we talked too much about actually what you do. We talked more about subjects, but I enjoyed the show. It was a good show. It was a good show. So anyway, I'm rambling. So guys, we're going to go. Hope you enjoyed it too. It will end up being a podcast by the end of probably halfway through next week, when I get time to do it. So I hope you enjoyed it. Next week we have I've forgotten his surname. Let me just quickly find it, if I can. We have got next week, we have got Savoy, who has been co-host at least once on the show. Can I find it in the next 30 seconds? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yes, Savoy Q Brown. He will be talking about, I think it's the universal here comes the stammer. University, university, I think it's called, and it's about becoming a superhero, becoming your own superhero, and finding those superpowers within. So that will be next week's show, which will be interesting. And so I'd like to finally say thank you so much to Marilyn. Thank you so much to Juan. Thank you so much to Robbie. Hope you guys enjoyed it.
Absolutely.
And so it is. Take care.
I've got to get it back out and go.
And cut. Yes. Oh, that's. I've got to look for one of them now. Yeah, that is also, guys. I hope you enjoyed the show. I know we did. So for now, take care. Love, Chi, and Shen from the Way of Conscious Mindfulness. Bye for now.